Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'll be showing you how to make experimental bass music in the style of Lanark Artefax, mainly inspired by his track Corra with some elements from Touch Absence as well. The project file, samples and presets are available for a small contribution in the description and via my Patreon. If you learned something from this video, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you like this style, check out my Sinjin and Zora and Ski Mask videos linked in the description. Our BPM is 181 and we're in the key of G minor. Let's start with the kick. Here I've chosen a tonal kick, which is a C and is pitched above most of the bass notes. The drums in Corra can be busy and almost random sounding at times, a bit like in footwork, so I've tried to replicate this feel. Next we have the drums. Starting with the break. I've processed this break with saturator and drum bus, and this helps to background it with the use of damping. Next we have the Zaps, which are two samples in a drum rack. The first is a zap, and then there's a reverse zap. Reversing this sound creates variety, and both zap and reverse zap type sounds appear in Corra. I've added serum effects with a phaser, and this adds variation to the timbre over the course of the loop. Although it is quite subtle. Then we have the hats. And there's EQ here, removing harshness, starting with hat 1. This is another frenetic pattern. Then there's hat 2. And finally, hat 3. Then we have a 909 style hat with a reverse version in a drum rack. Like with the Zaps, the reverse helps create an off-kilter groove. There's this MPC groove applied to all the MIDI in the drums group to create more of a swung feel. And on the group, there's drum bus, EQ, and reverb via A. Here I'm using the Empty Club preset. Next we have the basses, starting with the square bass, which is inspired by Touch Absence. Previously posted a similar free preset, so I'll link this in the description. I've used notes which jump almost an octave. And again, this is inspired by Touch Absence. In Serum, we have a square wave taken down by 2 octaves with the unison at 5. The amp envelope decays slowly, like an 808. There's also this filter, which sweeps down, having its cutoff modulated by LFO1. The resonance is essential to this patch, as is the drive. In the FX, there's distortion and EQ, which is boosting the highs. And in the matrix, there's pitch modulation. On the channel, there's a mono utility. Next, we have the 808. This is like the last patch, but we have a sine wave with a unison of 1 plus no EQ. On the group, there's parallel compression, EQ, chorus to add width, and light sidechaining compression from the kick. Plus reverb via A. Then we have the effects. Starting with Impact 1. Both Impacts 1 and 2 have filters within Simpler, which sweep the frequencies, like we saw with the basses. If I bypass this filter, you can hear its effect. On the channel, there's EQ and echo. Then we have Impact 2, and aside from the filter, there's Serum Effects with phaser and a short echo. Sixteenth notes with high feedback. Next, we have the texture. Again, there's a filter with resonance, Serum Effects phaser, and an echo. Then we have the reverse effects. And finally, the fluffy zap. This is a preset that I found in Ableton's library. I've not used any of the type of vocal one-shots that Lanark Artefax uses, so I'm kind of using this sound as a stand-in. Like the basses, this patch uses pitch modulation. On the channel, there's EQ and echo. And on the group, there's mild drum bus, EQ, and reverb via A. Finally, we have the choirs. These are both from Spitfire Labs, specifically Micah's choir, and as with all Labs products, it's free. So first we have the more staccato melody. I've tried to encapsulate one of the melodies in Corra Linn, which ascends in a similar way. So you can see how the pitch goes up and then descends at the end. Here I made sure to take the attack down, as Lanark Artefax's choir leads in Corra Linn do have a noticeable transient attack. I've also taken the reverb off both choirs. This preset is called Warp Laments. On the channel, there's drum bus with transient shaping. The EQ makes a huge difference here, as the inspiration tracks have glassy sounding vocal samples. The reason for the limiter is to boost the volume, because the EQ made the choir much quieter. Then we have the pads. In Corra Linn, Lanark Artefax uses 2 single note melodies from what I can tell, but I've gone for harmonies here and a few chords, which is inspired by touch absence. This warp fracture preset with the processing I've used is strikingly similar to the choir sounds I heard in Touch Absence. I always work out the melodies and chords of the artist before I make my project, and in this case, I could barely hear a difference. On the group, there's parallel compression, and I've narrowed the stereo image using a utility. And this required me to add some more gain to compensate. I've also used Serum Effects to add phaser and to narrow the width of the choirs so they're more mono-compatible. This was because the Labs presets are very wide by default, even when the reverb is removed, and I wanted this to translate well to club environments. Finally, we have dubby echo and reverb via A. And that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.